Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm Mayor Harrell, co-chair of the board, and I call the October meeting of the King County Regional Homelessness Authority's Governing Board to order. Thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the Seattle Public Library for hosting the in-person location today. I'd like to start us off with our theory of change, as we customarily do. We begin every meeting by grounding ourselves in our theory of change, which states, if we create a homelessness response system that centers people with lived experience of homelessness, then we will be able to respond to the needs and eliminate inequities in order to end homelessness for all. And then secondly, I'd like to articulate our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that King County is located on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples. We honor this land and its people, past and present, and we are committed to directing funding and resources to organizations led by and in support of Native and Indigenous people. And with that, we'll have the roll call. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Braddock.
Present.
Member Barone.
Here.
Member Balducci. Member Aviva.
Here.
Chair Harrell.
Here.
Member Nelson.
Present.
Member Juarez.
Here.
Member Bracken. Member Burney.
Here.
Member Prince. Member Backus.
Here.
Member Hay.
I'm here.
Chair, we have a quorum with 9 members present.
Okay, thank you very much. Now proceeding with the rest of the agenda, next is our consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda: approving the September 2025 meeting minutes and approving the updates to the March 2025, August 2025 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve these items?
So moved. Braddock.
Second, Backus.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The consent agenda has passed. Now we will hear from our CEO, Dr. Kelly Kennison, on our monthly CEO report. Dr. Kennison, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share some slides with you today. I want to do 2 updates for my time with the CEO report. One is, if I can figure out how to share. Oh, I'm screen sharing now. Okay, great. One is around our budget update, and the other is for our COC federal funding. Okay, do folks have the slides? Great.
Yes, we can see them.
Thank you. So as you know, we have been talking to you all for some time about our budget shortfall of 4.7 million for 2026. As a reminder, this is sort of due to a number of things that were coming together at the same time: reduced COVID funding, our cost reimbursement model, which is meaning we are incurring interest as we pay providers and wait to be reimbursed by our funders, and our administrative rate, which has historically been very low. We also know that this was coming, and so we've taken steps to make sure that we got ahead of it. We had a hiring freeze for almost all of this year, and it continues on into 2026. We've done extremely limited travel and professional development. We've moved staff around from less central positions into more operationally essential roles. We've significantly decreased the use of consultants. And we've just been briefing you all, the board, our funders, Seattle City Council and King County Council members as we've gone along and updated these budget projections. I understand as CEO, it's my responsibility to present an administrative budget that falls within the budget authority. And the board, the public, other stakeholders that we've been working with have asked us to make cuts that will not affect services and making sure that services in our system remain as whole as possible. So I also feel responsible for bringing that plan back to the board, as the only variable we really have that we can adjust is our staffing budget. We've met with providers, board members, many of you, to sort of get your take on what are KCRHA's operational essentials. And I've heard from all unanimously that that is providing provider support, making sure we maintain the excellent progress we've made on paying providers on time, in servicing contracts appropriately, and awarding contracts on time, and getting new money out the door. I've also heard from you that regional coordination continues to be a priority and that we need to ensure staff are available to do that really important work to advance our system goals. So at the direction of the board, I partnered with HR Interrupted Consulting to get a sense of what someone from the outside who's an organizational consultant would say about our org structure and how we would move forward, reducing our footprint. I've also talked internally to all of our leaders, gotten input from staff, worked closely with our finance department and HR department to develop a strategy for identifying cuts to staffing and some restructuring to make that work. So the principles that we settled on for the reduction are prioritizing the elimination of vacancies first. So those are sometimes important, very important positions, but they don't affect a person. And so where we could, we eliminated vacancies. We also focused on leaning out our leadership structure. I've heard from many of you that the structure felt top heavy, and that as we think about doing our job with less, that having a more lean organizational reporting structure would be very beneficial. And so we really took that seriously. We also made sure that that streamlining facilitated clear communication and communication. So communication and coordination, because we know we're still going through growing pains as an organization in terms of having those systems in place. And so wanted to make sure we don't go back on that progress as well. And we really are just taking that lens of what is an operational essential, and really focusing on having the resources there. So we are going to do a two-step process, one beginning this quarter, very soon. It will involve reducing staff for those non-essential activities, many administrative positions that were sort of newer when we thought this time last year we were going to have more funds and different things that we were going to need to take on with potentially a different federal administration. Those are not coming to fruition. And so that administrative support, which is mostly positions we've added, we will be rolling back. We also assess that top-heavy structure that's just not needed with our current fiscal environment, with less new funding and initiatives that need someone sort of authoritative in the room to make decisions other than me. We also are going to utilize in-kind support offered by King County and potentially City of Seattle, which we're very grateful for. I think that's a really good use of resources in these lean times. And we will be maintaining that hiring freeze into 2026. There are a few exceptions for positions that we do need to move forward on, but largely will not be moving most of our vacancies forward. So this leads us to a $3 million savings in our administrative budget. We would be operating in 2026 on an administrative rate of 7.4%. And that is $1.5 million less than we operated on this year. This reduces our overall positions by 22%. That is accomplished through eliminating 15 vacancies and 11 current employees. And so the risk benefits here, obviously benefits, the employees that will be leaving us were sort of the very nice to have and important roles, but not provider facing roles. It establishes a clear, streamlined leadership structure and provides critical support for some need to hire positions that really affect our operational continuity. The risks, as always, as you get leaner, that's a heavier workload for some of the remaining team. It could slow some of our responsiveness. We risk higher burnout. And relying on in-kind services is really great if it works well. So we need to commit to it working well, or else we could have some risk for increased costs if we have to go outside of those in-kind services. Our second stage will be early in the quarter, and that's really taking a look at our business model with some of those in-kind services. So hoping to collaborate with King County's continuous improvement team to look at our whole contract management lifecycle, looking at where we can shift roles between the 3 teams that are provider facing, but we don't want to do that until we have a really sound business process assessment. So that'll be happening in the first 2 quarters of next year. We also have some financial audits going on. We'll absolutely consider changes that are implicated by those audit findings, if any. And we'll just continue to work on that core data that we think is so important for understanding our solutions to homelessness in the region and making sure that that is really guiding our strategy and that staff feel supported in doing that work. In terms of thinking about how to operationalize this, we've really been trying to balance our business needs and the risk to the agency with trauma-informed approaches. Staff have been hearing about layoffs since May. They're very excited to get this over with, and they want to know what's happening. And so we're really balancing a delicate dance here of knowing that we need to put services first and also want to make staff as successful as possible as they move on to their next thing beyond KCRHA. We want to demonstrate to them that we value them very deeply in their contributions, and we know that these decisions have an effect on their well-being. And we did conduct an equity analysis to make sure there weren't disparate impacts on affected employees and their managers. So that's what I have for our budget update. Any questions on that piece before I do federal funding? Great. For federal funding, as we've been talking about for some time, we receive about $65 million in continuum of care funds in King County. Some of those are administered by KCRHA, some by King County. And we are anxiously awaiting the release of a notice of funding announcement, which will dictate the terms under which we can reapply for those funds for this current year funding 2025. We won't know what's happening really until we see the notice of funding announcement, but we expect a couple of things to show up there. One is a cap on every COC's spending on permanent supportive housing. And that cap is, like, if we're reading the tea leaves, likely to be about 30%, which is much less than we have historically spent on permanent supportive housing in our COC. We think that a third of the funds might be targeted to transitional housing, and the final third would go to shelter or supportive services. So that's kind of what we're hearing and getting information on from partners, and just based on the historical movement of these dollars. So if those allocations are true, we could potentially lose about 23 million of COC funding for permanent supportive housing and 13 million for rapid rehousing. So what we've been doing is figuring out how we can identify projects that better meet the goals of the notice of funding announcement that we expect to see. And we've been collaborating really closely with King County and City of Seattle to prepare for that potential sort of allocation. So really thinking about how do we describe the projects that we're doing to show that they are meeting some of the goals, even though we've sort of really gone in on housing first and permanent supportive housing, that many of those projects also have the services that the executive order is focusing on. We're looking at ways we can lift up different projects that are more aligned with those new goals. looking at new projects that might be better aligned with those goals, and really working with sub-grantees one-on-one and in groups to make sure they understand what's likely coming and how their projects can be as competitive as possible with the new notice of funding announcement. So our goal is really to preserve the maximum amount of resources coming to support King County homelessness services. We really want to maintain existing projects as much as possible, especially our brick and mortar facilities and permanent supportive housing projects. And we know those have received considerable investment over the years. And so I think are thinking of all of the strategies for filling out that notice of funding announcement and putting forward very competitive projects. I know folks want to know when this is happening, and we just don't know. The signs were that it was very close to coming when the government shut down. And so likely very soon after it opens, we would see that NOFO. Questions about federal funding? Oh, yep. Member Braddock.
I know we don't know the time frame for when we're going to hear from them, but what is the time frame for is it generally like a January to end of the year time frame that the funding, the 23 million, for example, that we would be, is that it's a 1 year, like first of year, is that the general?
It's a little bit odd. So normally, normally we would find out at the beginning of the year a sort of high level of what our funding would be. And then we'd start to get notifications about specific projects a couple of months later in the spring. And then we'd start to see the contracts come in. That is what happened for last year's funding, and they actually came in earlier than they normally do. Sometimes we don't get them until well into the summer or early fall.
So it's just varied.
Yeah, and then they stagger, the start date stagger for the projects.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on COC funding? All right.
Chair.
Turn it back. Oh, sorry.
Yes, Board Member Barone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Kinnison, for the report. I think this is a little bit of following up on Board Member Braddock's question. Dr. Kinnison, if you could talk a little bit, I mean, both, I know the city and the county are currently in their budgeting processes, and I would just be interested in figuring it out. On the one hand, it seems clear to me that local and state governments are not going to be able to, backfill all of the potential federal cuts. And so I think we want to be, setting realistic expectations for the community. At the same time, there's a level of uncertainty, and we want to, particularly keep people who are housed for as long as possible, and potentially give us some ability to figure out perhaps an option B and work with our state partners or others. What do you think the value is of kind of flexible emergency funding, even if it's limited in the scope compared to the overall federal need in terms of like helping to give KCRHA's flexibility, if that's a possibility?
Thanks for that question, Councilmember Barone. I think that is extremely valuable. When we apply, whenever that is, there'll be we expect a lag in time in having the federal government's decisions. And at that time, we'll need to have a plan in place for how we deal with a decision that is, no, we're not funding that going forward. And we, again, don't know, like typically that would be in the spring. And so we'd want to have identified funds ideally to be able to make some of those projects whole. The timeline is just really unknown. And so I think that as much flexibility as we can, even if it's not an amount that is going to be able to sustain everything, is really valuable.
Thank you.
Okay, is that the conclusion of your report, Dr. Kinnison?
Yes, I see Member Aviva.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the report today. I'm wondering if, I know that Dr. Thomas is going to talk later about precarity. And I'm wondering if this is being factored into what that's going to look like with that conversation on regionalism, because that is a significant amount of funding that is going to not exist this year.
To my knowledge, we're not yet factoring in any losses in that funding in these kinds of models because we just don't know. Is that what you're asking? If yeah. So not yet. So that is a layer, an additional layer to think about as we go through that regionalism presentation. It's a great point.
Okay. Do you have more information or are we concluding?
That's what I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report. Are there any other questions before we move to the public comment section? I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, so our next item will be public comment. And if you are here with us in person, please sign up to comment with Lisa Edge. And if you're providing comment via Zoom, please raise your hand now and you will be called on in the order received. Each commenter will be able to speak for 2 minutes. Commenters will hear a bell when they have 30 seconds left. Virtual commenters will be muted when the time is up. Public comment will be open for 50 minutes or until no others would like to speak, whichever is sooner. We do ask public commenters to please keep your comments related to items within the board's purview. So now, Lisa, will you please open public comment?
Yes, Chair. We don't have anyone in person, but so far we've got one person online that's raised their hand. Ben, you're unmuted. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. Members of the governing board, thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of my colleagues at KCRHA. Some of you may recall that in September of 2023, the entire team of system advocates, more than 35 people, were abruptly laid off as the Partnership for Zero was dismantled. These people, many of whom have lived experience and had been recruited fewer than 6 months prior, suddenly lost the security and stability of their paying jobs. Making this worse is the fact that some had even given up their housing subsidies to accept their job. And as if termination wasn't enough, management shortly announced that 10 members of the group were to be temporarily rehired in order to wind down the remaining 300 people housed under PFC. This effectively pitted everyone in that group against one another for temporary jobs. So it's understandable that as we again have been clumsily informed about more mass layoffs, we are expressing a high level of organizational anxiety. Those of us with lived experience are particularly affected. This board has the power to provide security for the people that it needs to perform this mission daily. We ask that you and the Labor Committee consider how your decisions align with our stated aims of promoting equitability, stability, and housing for all. Your choices will be your message to the community about whether you share in our commitment to the difficult work that we do on your behalf every day. Your actions will be our best evidence of shared purpose as we seek to restore the beautiful face of this region. One key proposal is that upon layoff, an employee receives up to 3 months area median rent to provide post-separation housing stability. At a total projected maximum cost of $82,500, this proposal costs just 6 cents for every dollar spent on payroll for the top 5 earners in our agency. This is a small investment, which would yield incredible benefits in terms of morale, dedication, and engagement across our critical workforce. In a public service organization that spends more than 11% of its payroll on just 5 people, it is reasonable for us to ask for this assurance. This is for our families, our homes, and our ongoing morale. It is an opportunity for this agency and the people who control its purse strings to walk their talk with respect to equity, ethics, and basic human considerations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Chair, we don't have anyone else with their hands raised to speak during public comment, so we can go ahead and close it.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, public comment is closed. We will now move into executive session to discuss matters related to RCW 42.30.110 subsections F and I. As noted on the agenda, potential action may follow in open session following this closed session. As presiding officer, I'm announcing that we are slated to be in executive session for 45 minutes, which was going to be approximately 4:15. If the executive session is to be extended beyond that time, I will announce the extension and the expected duration. Executive session begins now. Governing board members, please, are you paying attention, Councilmember Worth?
I knew you were gonna do that to me, Mayor. I knew
Please
it.
leave this call and join the Teams link that Lisa has put in the chat.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, we'll see you over there. Oh, we're gonna have script from executive session now instead of land.
I like that we're getting a rain reprieve.
Chilly out, but it's nice.
Okay, Lisa, would you like to, do I just announce I'm gonna have to extend it? What's the protocol?
Yes, just share the length of time that you want to extend executive session.
Okay, so as chair of today's meeting, we have to extend the executive session. I'm gonna say for another 30 minutes. So that'll be to about 4:45, and if it goes beyond that time, we'll extend it in public session again. And we are extending it for the same reasons we articulated for the same reasons in the original motion to move into executive session. Good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good. Leave.
Aha, I did it. I was here before everybody else, Mayor.
Okay, and we are being recorded, just so you know, Board Member Juarez, because you were late. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Oops.
Chair Harrell, everybody is back.
Okay, thank you. Just just give me 1 minute of grace here. 30 seconds, 20 seconds. Okay, as chair, I'm calling our regularly scheduled meeting back into session. We left executive session as described in the motion and under the RCW that we cited then. Ms. Edge, I'm going to ask you, I'm looking through my script, and basically we have two agenda items left to talk about. One is the work and report on sub-regional funding and service analysis based on a letter that I've written, correct? That's one. And, right, Lisa?
That is correct.
And then the second one is the resolution 2025-10, which may not be right to vote on, the regional temporary sheltering siting policy, correct? Those are two sets of items.
Yes.
Okay, and in the interest of time, the citing policy, we may not get to that given the length of our executive session. And if we were not to talk about that today, but at a subsequent meeting, would I have to make a motion to take that off the agenda to be talked at our next meeting, or could there be a motion for adjournment after the next item? How do I go about that? And we can have some discussion. Do you all want to continue with that second agenda item? I sort of raised the issue, but I won't be able to participate given the time of the day. How do you all feel about that? It's an important discussion. I would like to participate in it, but I'll defer to the group.
I also have a commitment, so I need to pop out myself in about 15 minutes.
Seeing a lot of nodding heads. Okay, so Ms. Edge, I'm just going to, can I make a motion just on the fly here on that item?
Yes. Yes, Chair.
I'm going to move to remove resolution 2025-10 regional temporary shelter siting policy from the agenda to be discussed at our next meeting. And that date of that meeting will be decided in the near future.
Second.
Okay. Any questions on the motion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. So we will, and then, so let's dive into the first discussion. And I believe the Chief of Research and Data, Dr. Tim Thomas, and Deputy CFO Tiffany Brooks, and Planning Manager Kiki Cervantes will be presenting their sub-regional funding and service analysis. And again, I think we're also going to have to just tee this discussion up. It's not a voting item. And so I think this meeting was supposed to be over at 5. So that gives you like 8 minutes to just tee it up and maybe talk about the scope of work. And I would just suggest that we continue this discussion at a subsequent meeting as well. Please proceed.
All right, I am gonna go ahead and get us started. I'm Kiki Cervantes, and I'm the planning manager here at KCRHA. Super grateful to be joining my colleagues, Tiffany Brooks, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Research and Data Officer Tim Thomas, to start this conversation today. Due to time, I just want to show on the screen the questions that we were posed. Regional coordination continues to be top of mind for us here at KCRHA, and these are really great questions. So we wanted to make sure that folks had a chance to see them ahead of time, focusing on regional funding analysis, resource distribution, local service delivery, resource sharing roadmap, and policy coordination. What they all fundamentally boil down to is how can public funding be better organized to serve those in all the regions in King County in need of homeless services. What we need is values and a framework, and we need an analysis to understand the problem so that we can generate solutions that are actually effective and then track outcomes. So how do we do this? Our subregional approach includes efforts to build, maintain, and convene partnerships with subregions, including DCHS, HSD, community partners, individuals with lived experiences, and providers. Also to use data to develop and implement quality improvement action plans and recommendations using the 5-year plan that was approved and adopted in 2023 as a framework. Build pathways for stakeholders and partners to collaborate on a regional response. So that does include work to continue establishing interlocal agreements with sub-regional jurisdictions, as with some success demonstrated by our North King County ILA and the soon-to-be implemented East King County Severe Weather ILA. And we're also currently exploring ways to innovate our engagement and planning strategy with our sub-region. So thinking of planning models that situate and share those efforts with sub-regional experts on the ground in maybe different or new innovative ways moving forward. But what we really want to do today is start building a baseline for more future in-depth conversations and reports and analyses. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Tim to talk a little bit more about analysis and progress to date.
Thank you, Kiki, so much, and thanks to everybody that worked on this presentation. This slide shows basically what we've been up to, but I'm going to leave that to the packet. So let's go ahead and move forward to a couple of slides. In my prior work before joining KCRHA, I was a professor at UC Berkeley, and one of the last things that my team and I did there was develop a forecast model called the Housing Precarity Risk Model that identifies locations where there's the highest risk of displacement and eviction. This uses about 600 variables, machine learning models, really advanced statistics that basically highlights where low-income displacement is most likely happening and also where eviction is most likely happening across the country. Now, if we look here in the Seattle region, we can see that most of the region has some risk with substantial levels, particularly between downtown Seattle and South King County. So the risk of eviction tends to be highest located in South King County. The risk of displacement tends to be highest within the Seattle kind of corridor in the core. If you look on the link that's provided at the very bottom, you can explore a little bit deeper on this, and I'm more than happy to meet with anyone to go through this process a little bit more. So the legacy of discrimination and segregation has led to a lot of displacement, particularly of Black families moving south to South King County, for example, where more than half of the county's evictions also occur. So areas like the Central District, which were 90% Black at the block group level, are now between 5 and 10% Black. Most of that population has moved south. Poverty has also increased in those areas, as well as issues of eviction increasing. And at this moment in time, King County is facing more eviction filings than they've ever had on recorded history.
Hey, Tim,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is so great. Is it possible for us to ask questions as you go, just so we get track?
Absolutely, Mayor.
When you say the term South King County, would you be so kind as to describe what cities you're referring to in South King County?
Absolutely. So that's the areas around from like SeaTac down to Renton, all the way down to towards Federal Way. And largely the area where you see the deeper red, that's largely the South King area that Kiki's highlighting right now.
Okay. And unincorporated King County as well, I take it?
Yeah, unincorporated too.
Okay. So Renton all the way to Federal Way in Auburn.
Yes.
Kent.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Now, there is a lot of precarity in South Seattle, in the South Seattle region too, but the highest concentration tends to be in the South King County area too. the Seattle housing market has pushed a lot of low-income households out that way. But what we'll do is, let me just go ahead and go to the next slide since we're so limited on time. We can kind of compare. This is showing the population size. Seattle Metro as a whole is roughly about 736,000 people. Median income 125,000. South King County is actually relatively similar in size with 651,000, 652,000. East King being 465, so on and so forth. I'll let you all take a look at these slides too on your own leisure, but the next slide shows kind of the distribution between the housing precarity risk model and the 2024 point in time count. So the point in time count is just one snapshot in January. And in 2024, we see that Seattle has roughly about 9,440 sheltered and unsheltered households. It's about 56% of the county's sheltered and unsheltered. South King County has the second highest at 19%. And then North King and East King, kind of the Bellevue, Redmond area, both have 11%. Other areas are close to 1 or less than 1%. Let's go to the next slide real quick. This slide shows the proportional distributions of what we call the housing inventory count on the right-hand side. These are including everything between shelters and permanent supportive housing. The numbers that you'll notice between, for example, Seattle is 9,440. Again, that is one snapshot in time. The housing inventory count is 14,536. These are more homes that were not counted in the pit. But what I want to point out here is that proportionally, roughly, these proportions are somewhat similar with a little bit higher housing inventory in Seattle. South King County has 19% pit, point in time in the purple, 14% in the housing inventory, so on and so forth. One thing to point out, though, is a huge disparity in the point in time count in North Seattle at 11%, 1,900 folks versus the housing inventory of 256 homes. So across the county as a whole, we roughly have about 2 individuals per 1 bed that's available. In North King County, we have 9 individuals per 1 bed that's available. We'll go to the next slide real quick. This shows the distribution of unsheltered and sheltered individuals from the point in time count. Seattle roughly has an equal number of 4,585 and 4,855 in unsheltered and sheltered. However, every other region has almost twice as many unsheltered as sheltered individuals. So this is kind of an issue of unsheltered homelessness is really growing outside of the Seattle region in particular, but is really high. This is not to say that these cities are not trying to address these issues, but it's a deeper analysis that needs to be done. All of this that we're doing right now is very preliminary. We're very excited to keep moving forward on this in-depthly. Let's go to the next slide. So as a demographer, what I like to do is try to standardize this. What does it mean? How can I compare these different regions to each other? So we calculated the number of unsheltered and sheltered per 10,000 people. And right off the bat in the third column, you'll see that Seattle Metro has 128 unsheltered and sheltered people per 10,000. North King County has 125. These are the 2 highest. The rest of them are about 49, 41, 16, and 12. Overall, across King County, there are about 75 unsheltered and sheltered per 10,000 people. Take it to the next slide real quick. This is a distribution of shelter beds. And what I want to show you real quickly is actually the next slide up ahead, which is comparing the number of shelter beds across the board versus the 2021 King County countywide planning policy. So the green bars are basically showing what we should have by 2044. And the blue bars show what we have in stock right now as of 2025. So Seattle Metro is roughly about 5,000 or 6,000 below its targeted area. However, the rest of the region is a little bit farther behind when it comes to meeting that standard. Now, the issue at hand is much bigger than just funding towards beds. The one thing that we want to point out is that Seattle is very conducive to unhoused populations because of what I call urbanicity. Transportation allows for more services to be distributed. There's also a lot that goes on in Seattle that other areas may not be able to deal with, particularly the general fund per se. I'll go ahead and skip a couple of slides, but I know we're at 5:01. We can talk about budget if there's time. I'll go and pass it over to my colleague, Tiffany.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Before I get started on the funding, due to time, do you guys want to ask questions to Dr. Thomas before we go to the next section, or do you want me to finish it out?
So Tiffany, thank you for asking. I have to get off the call. I think my co-chair, Shannon, she announced she had a conflict as well. I'm wondering if it makes sense. I'm going to ask the rest of the board to table this rich conversation until we can we may have a meeting before a regular scheduled meeting that we'll talk offline about that. But whether we end it now, since we're just scratching the surface, this is really important work we have to do. Do any of my colleagues have an idea? I have to get off the call. Any other thoughts to defer? Do you want to keep plowing through it? I don't know, I'll speak at once.
Mr. Chair, I would defer. I have a hard stop as well.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding, a lot of heads nodding. Okay. So, so let's do this. RHA, you are ready and prepared to answer all of our questions. You have data and slides, and we want you to keep it. Now you get a little more time to even beef it up a little more. We'll talk offline about our next scheduled meeting, both on the resolution that's postponed and this sub-regional analysis. I apologize, the executive session took so long. With that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I see none. Okay, everyone have a great day, and we'll reconvene, and everyone make it a great day. Talk to you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.